Hello everyone, and thank you for joining our Veeam webinar this morning. So we're joined by Philip Moore from Veeam and also John Wilkins from Bytes.
Morning. Bytes are a gold partner with Veeam, and we view Veeam as an essential part of our virtualization stack and one of our core recommended components. There are several Q4 promotions on, and so if you contact your Bytes account manager after the webinar, they can fill you in on what they are and how you can benefit from those. And another reason you may want to contact your Bytes account manager is to register for our VMworld UK update on the 12th of November at the Savoy, where there'll be several representatives from Veeam to discuss things in further detail, as well as some other core vendors and solutions as well. I know we always had good feedback previously from Philip's sessions, so I'm sure you'll enjoy this, and I'll hand over to Philip.
Right, so Veeam Availability Suite version 8. We're very close to release now, so we thought we'd give you a quick sneak preview of some of the features that we're going to be releasing over the next couple of weeks. There's no firm release date yet, but it should be in the next couple of weeks. So Veeam has three core products within its suite of products. First being Veeam Backup and Replication, which I'm going to concentrate today, but we also have two monitoring products. Veeam One, which is a standalone way of monitoring your Hyper-V or vSphere environment, as well as your data protection environment powered by Veeam. If you've got Microsoft System Center in your environment, we also do a management pack for System Center, which allows you to monitor the virtual environment in much the same way as Veeam One. You can buy all these products as a bundle, either as Veeam Essentials or Veeam Availability Suite, which gives you a complete availability suite for your modern data center. Just a quick bit about Veeam. We've been around since 2006. Our first version of Backup came out in 2008. We've been a rapidly growing company. This is even a bit out of date, but we're well over 100,000 customers and have approximately 1,500 staff worldwide, with development centers both in EMEA and in the States, and support departments all around the world. So Veeam Backup and Replication, it's a backup and replication solution for a virtual environment. It's completely agentless. There's no need to install an agent within a virtual machine. You don't have to manage that agent. You don't have to license that agent. And that agent's not a point of failure. We can still do the backups even if the virtual machines are switched off. Veeam's an incredibly scalable solution. In a small single host environment, we can install on a single VM. All the components can be installed there. But in larger environments, we can scale out the number of proxies. They're the bits of Veeam that does all the work, reads the data, compresses it, deduplicates it, stores it to a backup repository, and the number of backup repositories, and even the number of backup servers to cope with environments with tens, hundreds, and even thousands of hosts. All the licensing is very straightforward. It's all based per socket. So as you grow, your licensing will grow with you. There's no need to buy additional features. It's all included in the Veeam product bundles. So how do we take a backup? Well, even though we don't use agents, we can still do all the great things that agents do. We just don't use agents for them. So we can still quiesce the operating system, we can still quiesce the application, clear down your SQL transaction logs, clear down your Exchange transaction logs, run scripts, whatever you need to do. We just don't use agents to do that. So we'll quiesce the VM. At that point, we'll take a snapshot of that VM, and at that point, the operating system and the application effectively becomes read-only. We can move that to another location, whether that be a backup file stored on some storage, or even if it's another host running somewhere else for high availability or DR. So for backup, that's backupping to a file. For replication, that's replicating to another host somewhere on your network. We can also leverage storage snapshots, and I'll talk about this in a bit more detail later, to really make sure that we're not putting any unnecessary load on the virtual machine itself. We'll also leverage technologies like change block tracking in VMware, and we've actually written our own implementation of a similar technology for Hyper-V to make sure after that first full backup we're only backing up the changes. So your backup windows stay as short as possible. We've got circumstances where backups become 50 times faster to do. The backup windows shrink by that amount because of the way that we take their backups. They're very light on the environment. And we'll take the data in the most efficient way possible, ideally taking it straight off the SAN itself, but if not, we can take it through a virtual appliance or over the network if required. So the backups are really quick. We'll get that data off and we'll get that in a very consistent form to ease your recoveries. But where Veeam really starts to stand above the competition is around our recovery options. A lot of this is fueled by technology we call vPower. What vPower allows you to do is start a virtual machine directly from the backup file. There's no need to restore that data back into the hypervisor first. So with a when we're restoring data, you don't have that bottleneck where you're copying all the bits and blocks from the backup storage into the production storage. This allows us to do a number of things. The first of those is instant VM recovery. So say if you lost a VM within the environment, maybe someone accidentally deleted it, maybe you had a disk tray failure and the storage is no longer available. So before you even know what the problem with it is, we can start the recovery process. We can use vPower to start that virtual machine directly from the backup file. That just takes 2 minutes to do, so your users can get back up and running. So say this is an Exchange server, the users can start sending emails straight away. Now in the background you can go away and try and work out what the problem was. Maybe it was a disk shelf failure, you've replaced that shelf, you've fixed the problem. But once we've got that initial 2 minutes of downtime out of the way, we can do the rest of the recovery completely online using either storage vMotion if you've got it available, or our own migration technologies if you don't have the licensing for that. So after that initial 2 minutes of downtime, there's no further impact to the users. So very quick recovery of whole virtual machines. You've gone from a situation where you might have taken half an hour at best to recover that virtual machine to being able to do that in just a few minutes, to getting your RTOs down to just a few minutes. But because we've got this ability to start the virtual machines from the backup files, we can leverage them for even more than just simple recovery. First, we can do much better checks on what our backups, whether our backups are usable. So in most solutions you'll have a simple verification type check where we'll match the bits and the blocks in the production servers to the bits and the blocks in the backup file. And that's a good first check. But what it doesn't tell you is when you start to recover that virtual machine, is that virtual machine going to start? Is there going to be a driver issue that causes a blue screen? Is there going to be a service that doesn't start up, which means my users can't get back to work? So what we can do with Veeam is start up the virtual machines in a test environment, or what we call a virtual lab. So we'll spin up the VMs that constitute a single application. So maybe this is a database system where we've got a database VM, an application front end, probably something like an IIS server, and then maybe a security server, so an AD server, something like that. And we'll spin those virtual machines up in that protected bubble, completely off network, so it's not going to interfere with your production data. And once we've done that, we'll run a verification job. We'll check that the VM starts up, that we get a heartbeat from it, that the OS starts running, we can ping it, and then we can test the application. So in this database application, we might see if we can open port 80 to the web server on the front end, making sure that all those services are going to be available to users. Once we've done that, we'll package all that information up into a little report telling you that either the environment's protected, you're covered, when you're going to have to restore in the event of a disaster, all your data is going to be there and all your machines are going to start, or there's a problem somewhere in the environment that we need to look at now before it impacts us in a disaster. A great way of really making sure that your DR testing, your backup testing is completely automated and taking place after every backup window in some cases. Building on this, because we can start these point-in-time versions of these applications, we can spin up them in these virtual labs and do very rich restores. And you've got a complete point-in-time running version of that application. So we can restore individual user items, individual mail items, individual database items, no matter what application they're coming from. It's a very powerful way of recovering and really covers you for everything. So no matter how bespoke an application is within your environment and you need to do application type restores, where you need to restore those tables, restore those mail items, as long as it's on a VM, we can do that for you. To do that, we'll introduce a little virtual lab proxy appliance. It's a small VM that sits on the environment that acts sort of a one-way door between your production and your backup networks, making sure that none of that backup data gets changed or indeed the production data gets changed. We can also start using the backups for just more than backups. So we can leverage them for things like testing, because we've got this ability to start these virtual labs, these on-demand sandboxes. We can use them to do things like Windows patch testing. You can spin up all your virtual machines as they were yesterday, apply a Windows patch to them, check that there's no adverse effects with doing that patch. That's also great for training. If you want to give the admins the ability to have a look at the environment, play with it, change things, test things, they can now do that using the backup storage and the backup networks rather than risking that activity on the production network. So we can leverage all of these features either with normal backup files using vPower, or if you've got a replica within your environment in VMware, we can also leverage the replicas to do all these tests and on-demand sandboxes. So that's, well, I've been talking mainly about version 7 features at the moment, so that's a recap of a lot of the stuff we've had available in the product for, in some cases, a couple of versions now. But most of the stuff moving forward from this point of the presentation is going to be new features for version 8. So at Veeam, we've got the ability to use those UAs to leverage application item recoveries, but for certain applications in the Microsoft stack, we've got even better ways to recover, making your recoveries even faster. So the first of those, and this was actually available in version 7, but we've enhanced it slightly, is the Explorer for Exchange. What this allows you to do is dive inside a backup file, pull out a virtual disk, pull out the EDB database, mount it directly, and browse, inspect, and restore individual mailboxes, individual mail items, individual calendar items, any object really from within that database directly back into your environment, or export it into another location. We've added some extra functionality. We can recover now from hard deleted items, so items that you've have been received and deleted in between backup windows. We've got access to that deleted items area now, so we can recover those as well. We also have the ability to recover individual Exchange items via the self-service interface, which I'll talk about a little bit later. We've also got an Explorer for SharePoint. This gives you deep visibility into SharePoint 2010 and 2013 databases, letting you export lists, templates, documents, all of those things back into the SharePoint environment. Or we can export them, you can email them to other users, whatever you might want to do with them. So new Explorer for version 8 and an Active Directory Explorer. Up until this point, all of our Active Directory recoveries have been around UA. I mean, that process is fairly quick. It takes 10 or 15 minutes to get an item back into the environment, but now we can do it even quicker than that. We'll dive again directly into the backup file, pull out the disk, mount the Active Directory database. We can browse, search and restore user objects, OUs, computer objects back into Active Directory. You can also compare Active Directory objects to your current Active Directory or another Active Directory. So if you have a situation, possibly you've changed all the offices by accident on a group of AD users, you can now see which ones have changed, which ones haven't, and choose which ones you want to revert back to their previous settings. Great thing about our AD recovery, will also recover the password along with the object. So if you're in a situation where you've deleted 100 machines accidentally, normally when you've re-added those machines, you'd still have to rejoin those objects, go around each one and add them back onto the domain. Because we're restoring the password, those machines will connect straight back to the domains if they've never been disconnected. This is my favourite new Explorer for version 8, and that's the ability to dive into SQL databases and pull out individual DBs. We had a previous version of this where we were very concentrated very much on restoring individual table items, individual records almost, and it's a useful piece of functionality, but we found what people really wanted is not the ability to restore a specific object within SQL, but the ability to roll back to a specific point in time. So that's exactly what you can do now. You can dive straight into the backup file again, pull out the databases, and either export or restore them into a database environment. Even more than that, you can select a specific point in time by a simple slider so that you can get your database back to a time before a faulty transaction went in, or maybe a point in time where you need to line it up with a back-end system. You can even restore back to a very specific transaction, so you've got that level of granularity down there. This is also available through the self-service restore interface, so you can delegate this responsibility to DBA admins. To enable us to do this, as well as backing up the whole virtual machine with SQL, we can now back up transaction logs. So every 5-10 minutes we can save backup logs to one of the backup servers, and that allows us to do those individual recoveries. And because we're just backing up the logs, they're very, very quick and can happen very, very frequently, as I said, as often as every 5 minutes. We'll store those backups in a log bundle file that sits alongside your normal backup files on your backup repository. So in version 7 we have the ability to create replicas of virtual machines, and replicas are great because as it's software based, we can create replicas on completely different platforms. You might have a SAN at your production site or your main site, but you might only have standalone hosts at your DR site, and that's something we can absolutely accommodate. We've always had the ability to re-IP, so change the IP addresses, change the switch configuration, fail back, throw away the changes, all those things with replication. But we've got some additional functionality coming to version 8. We've got the ability to add an orchestration plan, so giving a defined order of VMs with some delayed starts and some abilities to run scripts. So rather than having to manually fail over the whole environment, we can create one-click or near one-click failover plans that run through that set boot up order, making it very easy to boot up whole environments in just a couple of seconds, even from lowly skilled staff. We can also have the ability in version 8 to use our backup files to build the replicas ready to go. So you might be backing up already to a backup file. Rather than having to touch the VMs again to create replicas, we can now use that backup data as the starting point to build those replicas, and the point going forward, in fact. We also have the ability to accelerate the movement of data around networks. So within Veeam, you've got the ability to create a replica at another location, or the ability to create a backup at another location using what we call a backup copy job. A backup copy job doesn't simply back up your copy your backups, but what it does is it creates secondary restore points on at a secondary location, completely on a different schedule. So you could have daily backups happening at your primary site, or hourly backups, whereas you might only have daily or weekly backups happening at your secondary site. So with one acceleration, we can accelerate this process and use quite small links to facilitate this process. So what we do is we put some cache at the primary and secondary site. Excuse me. And whenever we send a block of data to that secondary site, we check if it already exists on that site. So if you've got a situation where you're up to, say, deploying Windows updates across multiple machines and multiple locations, We'll check that those window updates haven't been updated before from any other location and transfer that block only if it's a new unique block. What this potentially allows us to do is move huge amounts of data, terabytes over 5 2 meg links very, very quickly and very, very easily. It's all possible to pre-seed this as well to improve the process even further. New for version 8 as well, you have the ability to add a cloud repository. So within the previous versions you could do this yourself. You could create a virtual machine in the cloud, load the Veeam services onto it to give you a very intelligent storage location for your backups in the cloud. With version 8 we've pre-packaged a lot of this functionality so you can contact a cloud service provider, configure, just add them very simply with a username and a password and a location of that cloud gateway, at which point you'll have a new repository appearing in your network that you can back up to. Those service providers as well can use that cloud repository to leverage their own DR services, their own backup services, all of those sort of things. It's completely secure, encrypting the data across the network over SSL, and we can leverage everything like one acceleration, backup copy jobs, instant file restores directly from the cloud if required. New for version 8 as well, and this is probably our most requested feature behind physical backup at the moment. The other one was tape. We now have that in the product, is encryption. So as well as being able to encrypt data in transit, we can now encrypt data at rest, and we'll store it with 2 recovery keys, a user password and what we call an enterprise manager recovery key. What this allows you to do if the person that has the knowledge of the passwords leaves the business is to generate a new unique key for the recovery recovery point, so you can still recover the data. If you lose access to the enterprise manager, you lose access to the user password, obviously you'll not be able to get access to that backup anymore. Uses pretty much industry standard AS256 bit encryption, so all that data is kept secure either within your own location, or even if you're using a cloud provider for your backups, they will not be able to gain access to that data without your permission or by you supplying those recovery keys. So we've got a new, a lot of new functionality coming to Enterprise Manager. What Enterprise Manager allows you to do is manage multiple backup and replication environments and multiple backup and replication servers, as well as giving you visibility of the environment, enabling you to license that environment centrally and search across that environment centrally. It also gives the ability for restoring self-serving restores. It's a simple web interface that users, help desks, DBAs, all of those groups that wouldn't normally have full access to the backup system to be able to restore virtual machines if you so wish. It's a slightly old slide here. We've got a nice new look for Backup Enterprise Manager in the final version. But it's a great way of delegating that responsibility to individual groups. You can be pretty granular, so for example you might want to give your help desk the ability to recover files but not VMs. You might want to give your DBAs the ability to restore SQL databases but nothing else within the environment, and you can do all that within the user interface. We've also got a lot of great new storage integration for version 8. So building on our existing relationships with HP, we're also going to bring some full support for the NetApp platforms. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, we use a VMware snapshot to create a backup. In VMware environments, if you've got a highly transactional system, those VMware snapshots can grow quite large. When you come to the end of your backup window, you want to reabsorb that data back into the, I suppose, the original VMDK file. It can potentially take a little bit of time to do that and have a significant impact on your production data. So in highly transactional systems, you would have needed to do the backups in a quieter time, do them less often to reduce that impact. So using either HP or NetApp now, we can leverage them to create a storage snapshot the moment we've taken the VMware snapshot. So we only take this VMware snapshot for a couple of seconds, completely sidestepping the problem, and then we leverage your storage to fuel the backup process as a source for our backup proxies. What this means is that you can back up your busiest and most transactional VMs at any point in the day and back them up as often as every 5 minutes if you so wish. On top of this as well, you can also leverage your existing snapshots for your recovery. So you might be only taking backups to backup storage once a day, but you'll probably, if you've got a great snapshotting system like HP Store Virtual Store Server or a NetApp FAS, you might be taking NetApp snapshots once every hour. Now those would be a great way of filling that gap, to use those to recover individual files, individual machines, individual application items, and that's exactly what we can do with Veeam. So we can mount the snapshots directly, pull out individual files, pull out individual virtual machines, pull out individual Exchange items directly from those snapshots. Really speeds up that whole process of having to use that snapshot by mounting it to a host, mapping it to a virtual machine, exporting the data, possibly importing that data into another system. Can take 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes to get that process done at best. So now we can leverage those snapshots and our automation, our recovery tools to get those items back in just a couple of minutes. If you've got NetApp within your environment as well, we can also leverage snap vaults and snap mirrors, either using them as a source for our recoveries or a secondary location for our backup. So once we've taken that storage snapshot, and that's a great snapshot to keep because it's been created, it's had all the Veeam cleanup done on it, we can send that snapshot to a snap mirror or a snap vault, really helping you with that 3-2-1 rule. I don't think I've mentioned that today, but Veeam really believes in that 3-2-1 backup rule. You should always have 3 copies of your data. 2 of those copies of your data should be on different backup mediums, so possibly one on tape, one on disk, one with a cloud provider, and one of those should be off-site. So it really helps you building those great backup strategy. We've not just stopped at using integration with storage for the source of the backups. We've also done a lot of work with using them for the destination. So we've got a few deduplication devices that we can now leverage within Veeam. So we have the ability to use an EMC data domain, use its DDBoost technology, its virtual copy ability, so that we can start leveraging those devices to get backups quickly to a secondary deduplicated location. We also have support for Exagrid. We can now natively run the Veeam repository services on those Exagrid devices, and we also have some enhanced support for HP Store Vaults devices. So if you're going to use any of those 3 devices for your backups, you'll get some additional functionality. It's important to note as well that even though we've built some specific functionality for some specific storage vendors, Veeam works great with any storage platform really, whether it be directly attached, iSCSI, fiber channel attached storage. We can leverage that in the best ways possible, even without this direct integration. We'll still read data directly over iSCSI or directly over fiber channel to pull that data off. It's just with these additional providers, we've got some extra bells and whistles added on as well. So a couple of things that we've really worked on under the hood to help you out with backup and make sure it's not got any impact on your production environment. With Veeam, because we're so efficient at pulling data off disks, potentially we can impact your production environment. So in previous versions you had to be quite careful about how much access and how much throughput you let to the Veeam servers. If you have a 10 gig iSCSI connection into your storage, potentially we could pull that data off at 10 gig if required. So in version 8 we've got a new bit of functionality called Backup I/O Control. What this does is it constantly monitors the latency to your disk. So we'll monitor the backups and monitor the production storage And as that latency starts to creep up, we'll scale off the amount of new backup jobs we'll implement on the environment. If it goes up above a second threshold, we'll completely throttle the backups to make sure we're not impacting production data. As with all great things in Veeam, it's a simple checkbox to turn it on. There's no configuration really necessary. You can, if you have the Enterprise Plus edition as well, adjust the thresholds and adjust the latency per data store if required. We've made some significant enhancements to tape support. The version 7 was quite a complete version, but it was very much version 1 of our tape offering. One of the main constraints was you had to attach your tape to the backup and replication server itself. There is no ability to put that at a secondary site, at a secondary location, which caused a little bit of creative thinking sometimes around how we deployed the backup solution. Version 8, all those constraints are gone. You can deploy a tape server in much the same way that you would do a proxy or a repository anywhere in the environment. We have the ability also to use backup copies as a source for tape backups. Fully supports pretty much anything LTO3 with a native Windows driver. So if you don't have Veeam at the moment, you can leverage probably whatever existing device you have. Also got new support for offline vaults, ability to track tapes much more easily, much more quickly through the Veeam console itself. So those are some of the highlights. There's literally hundreds of new features and pieces of functionality in version 8, and I've only gone through some of the more visible ones today. We've got some great functionality. I mean, a couple of examples here. We can use hardware BSS snapshots and CBT drivers to restore data as well as backup data at the moment. We've got new link indexing support for Linux VMs. Another great feature which I've not mentioned today is a feature we call Snapshots Hunter internally. But what that does is, with a Veeam backup, quite often VMware wrongly reports a snapshot being deleted to us. It's really more of a VMware issue than a Veeam issue. But what we'll do with Veeam is we'll look at the data store, make sure that we're backing up that those snapshot files don't exist anymore in the data store, and if they do, we'll keep issuing a command to delete that snapshot until it's gone away, getting you around those issues of snapshots. So just a quick note at the end here, we've also have two products that allow you to monitor both the backup environment and your hypervisor environment as well. So most monitoring solutions, they'll see as low as the VM but no further than that. They've got no way of telling you how their CPU usage, their memory usage interacts with the underlying hypervisor. And that's where Veeam One comes in. It's a real-time monitoring and reporting engine that really allows you to see how your environment is performing, how your backups are performing, and allows you to report on that. So we can do things like look at your VMware environment, see which ones you've allocated too much or too little virtual memory to get the best performance and the best value out of your environment. We can see how much space you have on your backup storage, making sure that we know that you can back up the next 30, 60, 90 days, and we'll present a report back to you saying that within the next 35 days you're going to run out of backup storage at the current level of growth. We can also do great things about reports on your recovery protection. So have a look at all your environments, all your VMs in the environment, and see which VMs have been backed up in the last 2 days, which machines are currently exposed, which machines do we need to look at. All of that reporting information is available in Veeam One, so it's a great idea to consider buying Veeam Availability Suite when you're purchasing backup and replication, because it gives you that rich reporting ability. If you've got Microsoft System Center, the same functionality or similar functionality available in Veeam Management Pack, giving you the ability to report on the environment and to fill that gap that System Center gives you between the metal and the VMs itself. Similar reports are available, backup reports, performance reports, all that sort of thing, giving you that dynamic information that you can use to capacity plan for the future. New for version 8 of Veeam 1, we're going to give you the ability to pull in all the security information from Virtual Center. So when you delegate a specific group of users to a specific group of hosts or VMs, in Virtual Center they'll only be able to see the same VMs, the same hosts within Veeam 1 at the same time, simplifying the management and monitoring. We've also got a load of great new capacity planning reports there, giving you things like the ability to capacity plan for a move to the cloud, for example. The Management Pack, and one of the few things, everything Management Pack has been released. It was released about 6 weeks ago now, version 7 this is. The big thing there is we've also got support for Hyper-V as well as VMware. So that's something that you've not looked at before because you've got a Hyper-V environment. We can now report on that just as well as we do with VMware. Again, loads of new reports in there, loads of new widgets. I won't spend too much time on it today, but if you have any more questions on that, please talk to your account manager and they can get you in touch with someone at Veeam that can help you out with the proof of concept. So these aren't final at the moment, will be announced in a couple of weeks, but the product is available in 3 versions: the standard, Enterprise, Enterprise Plus. Most of what I talked about today is available in the Enterprise version. If you want to move to Enterprise Plus, what you'll get on top of that is that deep storage integration, one acceleration if you should require it, and the ability to do that self-service restore for larger enterprise type organizations that want to really customize who can restore what within the environment. We also do a stripped down standard version that gives you very basic backup replication and scheduling within your environment. Veeam 1 is only 1 edition, but Management Pack comes in 2 editions, an Enterprise and Enterprise Plus edition. The Enterprise effectively has most of the reporting stripped out, so it's mainly for monitoring and simple backup reporting available in there. So hopefully that was an interesting insight into what we've got coming for version 8. Will be, as I mentioned at the beginning, we've got no fixed release date at the moment, but it's literally weeks away, no longer than that. So you'll be able to get access to this and see all this and get a trial installed pretty soon. Okay, thanks everybody. If I just pass over again now.
Okay, thank you, Philip. So we're now going to go to the Q&A session. So if you do have any questions, if you could please just pop those into the questions box, which is the right-hand side of your screen, and then Philip can answer those for you shortly. Okay, so we have a question here from Lee, who said, are there any plans to work with Dell Equalogic?
At the moment, I'm not aware of any specific integration we've got going with Dell Equalogic. We really need 3 things to work with a storage provider. We need enough people to be using that storage provider. We need support from the vendor to help us do the integration. It's very deep API integration. We don't plug in via Veeam where we talk directly to the storage. So we need some cooperation to get that done with the appropriate teams. And the final thing we need is a robust snapshot mechanism. I think with Equalogic, I'm not sure that robust snapshotting mechanism is there, which is why I don't think we're looking at Equalogic at the moment.
Okay, thanks, Philip. So Lee has also asked another question. He said, is version 8 free for customers with active maintenance on version 7?
Absolutely. So you'll be able to move to version 8. As long as you've got active maintenance, to the same edition. One thing I would add to that though is because we're having a version release at the moment, If you want to move up to edition, say if you've got NetApp with the environment, you really want to take advantage of Enterprise Plus functionality, now's a great time to do that because we're offering some great incentives to do that. So talk to your account manager over at Bytes and they'll be able to tell you all about those promotions we've got running at the moment.
Okay, thanks Philip. And we have a question from Stephen who's asked if there are any documents on the upgrade path.
Sure, I didn't cover that actually. So we'll be supporting upgrade from 6.5 and 7, version 7 to version 8. If any of you have been through the Veeam Backup and Replication upgrade before, patching process, it's identical. You deploy, you install it on your backup replication server, and it will go and update all of the backup components itself. Very simple, very straightforward. There will be some upgrade documentation coming up very shortly. It's one of the things that we're just finalising at the moment, pre-release.
Thanks, Philip. So Mark said, backup restore of a physical master server. Any plans of a secondary master server for DR?
Right. So I'm sure we're talking about the backup and replication server itself here. If you're not, let me know and I'll try and answer the question. But we do support configuration backup and we do support backing up of the virtual machine itself. One of the great ways to protect that to a secondary location is replicate that server. You'll just need to start that one server up outside of the replication plan to recover it effectively. It's just a couple of minutes to do it. It's often the best way to protect that backup and replication server. Sorry, I've just realised you said a physical server. Again, just configuration backup. We do have the ability to, we'll have a new tool coming called Endpoint Backup. What that allows you to do is back up files and quiesce a physical device, whether that be a laptop or endpoint desktop, or in fact a server. I wouldn't use it for backing up a primary SQL server that wasn't virtual, but will be great when it comes out to back up something like the Veeam Backup server itself.
Thanks, Philip. So we have a question from Vasil. So he said, regarding the backup and recovery product, is there a plan to improve the product? When would it be possible to keep the VM backup deltas after the VMs are migrated to another vCenter server?
Right, okay, that's quite a specific question. If I can take that one offline, at the moment there's loads of under the hood improvements on how we track backups, how we can import the backups. But if you contact myself directly, and we can work around your specific issue to try and work out what you need to do and how we can improve that for you.
Yep, so we can arrange that for you. Okay, so we have another question here. So this is from Stephen, who said, with regards to the tape function, are there any limitations?
Ooh, depends on what you mean by limitations. As long as you've got an LTO3 or above device and it's got a native Windows driver, we should be able to use that within the environment. There is a
sorry to interrupt, Philip. He said
devices that
he said it's with regards to drives.
Right, yeah. So we can utilise most tape devices, as I said, with an LTO3 or above that have a Windows driver. So that's a driver that can back up in Windows tape format effectively. If you can see it in Device Manager and it's a Windows drive you've got in there, it should work with Veeam Backup and Replication. There is a supported drive list available on the forum of devices we've seen out and working in the wild, and we've got loads of people using the tape support at the moment with version 7, so there's a good chance that your device will appear on that list already, so that's the best place to check.
Okay, thank you, Philip. So Mark's, so he's written more flexible scheduling for copy jobs, having weekly, monthly, rather than days like it is currently. It's hard to implement monthly archive type jobs.
Sure. So you should have, we have done a whole lot of work within what we can do with backup copy jobs, whether we can use them for sources for jobs. We have the ability to mark individual monthly backup copy jobs for retention or weekly backup jobs. Again, if you contact me directly and you've got a specific scenario or backup strategy that you want to implement, we can try and get the best configuration in Veeam to suit your particular environment. So I suppose to sum that up, a lot of new enhancements for backup copy, but yeah, I'll contact you directly with whatever you need to resolve in your environment.
Okay, yeah, we can sort that for you. Okay, so I think that's all the questions we have. Okay, so I think that's all the questions for today. So thanks so much, Philip, and thank you everyone for joining the webinar today.